And a warm welcome to Media Week. We've got our co-host, editor and publisher of Mediaweek, James Manning, in the studio with us. James, good afternoon to you.
Hello, team. Radio ratings out this week. We're going to talk a bit more about Alan Jones in a minute, but he and Ray Hadley once again dominating. Yeah, look, they did very well. They were both down a little bit, but the margin they lead the market by, no concern there at all. They always do. They just have a lock on it, those guys. And the FM space at Smooth did very well. So this was a trend last year as well, wasn't it? The back half of last year. Yeah. Smooth doing particularly well. Smooth's was #1 in Sydney, Melbourne for the last two surveys of last year. It lost top spot in Melbourne, but it's still up there. It's kept top spot in Sydney, but the breakfast show did really well.
Really?
Yeah, so just did fantastic business.
Does it tend to stay the same, the ratings, in the last sort of 6 to 12 months? Has there been much of a shake-up?
No, they move around a little bit. Yeah, I mean, there's a few people with challenges, like Nova, took a bit of a knock in Sydney. They had a really good 2018, started the year pretty badly in Sydney. Down in Melbourne, Australian Radio Network is still in a bit of pain down there. Their two brands. Well, Gold overall's doing well, but their breakfast show went down a little bit. The UK import, Christian O'Connell, who's come in, he started off very well last year, but he slipped a bit recently. And the Kiss brand down in Melbourne has been a long time basket case. We've talked about it in the past. But they are in stress. They want to persevere with it, because the worst thing you can do is chop and change your shows. So if you've got a good show, just let it run and run. We often talk about the importance of the breakfast shows as far as television is concerned, setting up the rest of the day, the advertising and so forth. Is it a similar story the commercial side when it comes to radio as well? Even more so in radio. Is that right? Breakfast's your prime time in radio, although drive's getting a little bit more important, but breakfast is where your biggest audiences are. It sets up the station, and that's where they write the most revenue. So, and the good radio stars earn more than the biggest TV stars. They're that critical to the business model. Right. Speaking of radio stars, Alan Jones, and speaking of salaries as well, this has been a saga that is seemingly going for quite some time, well covered in the media. Where is that? Because I think there was some sort of a D-Day this week. Yeah, there was a trigger this week where they could get into formal negotiation. I think his contract's up mid-year, but they need to have it sorted pretty soon, according to the agreement they signed last time. If you ask me, I don't think he's really going to go anywhere. His best deal is always going to be at 2GB Macquarie Media, and similarly Macquarie Media's best outcome is to have him stay. You don't think a Nova swap might work there? If you can try and rescue the Nova brand.
They might just reshape the whole Nova brand around him, who knows?
There was talk he might go to Sky TV or something, or Sky News. I don't think that'll happen. I mean, he has a role on there, but I can't see him moving really.
All right, well, watch the space, and no doubt we'll have more updates next week. But 9.com.au, it's moved up the ranks. In fact, its combined audience of websites that fall under its umbrella came in second place in the Nielsen February news website rankings.
Yeah, part of the sweet success for the Nine digital property is Nine Honey, which is now the #1 lifestyle brand. Well, for more on the audience growth in what is a very crowded market and what is ahead for the brand, Nine Digital Editorial Director Kerri Elstub, and please say joins us in studio. Kerri, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
What a success, Nine Honey.
Yeah, look, it's been a real passion project for Helen McCabe and myself. In fact, I joined the company after I heard her speaking about it. At Nine. We had never met before, and she came to Nine, and I was working at a current affair at the time, and I heard her speak about it, and straight away I was enthralled. I was like, oh, I need to be part of this, and I literally emailed her that afternoon and said, this sounds exciting, I like what you're doing, I want to be part of it. And 2.5 years later, thrilled to say that it's become #1.
I would have thought it was such a competitive space, though, that space in particular.
Look, it is incredibly competitive, and certainly the people we have in that market space do amazing work. So the fact that we've managed to get there and hopefully maintain that kind of workflow, that kind of audience engagement is really incredible. And yes, I understand that it is 1 month, and 1 month does not a year make, but for the hard work that's gone into it, I'm happy to be here and tell you, #1 in February Nielsen's, we'll take it, it's great.
How many brands exist within the area that you look after? I mean, we all know Nine Honey, but there's other things.
Yeah, so in terms of the 9.com.au network that I look after, there's 9.com.au, which is the big overarching brand, and within that there's 9news.com, which is our news vertical, Wide World of Sports, which is our sports vertical, and Honey, which is our lifestyle content. So, yeah, we really cross the gamut of all areas, and in my job and in Helen's job, we sit across all those.
And I've got to say, a lot of this success has got to come from some of your TV shows, in particular on 9. Married at First Sight is obviously high rating, as we know. We always have office discussions about it, you know, what's happened overnight. I guess is that a key part of the success?
Married at First Sight undoubtedly has been great for us, but I would probably also point out too that every other media organisation is covering Married at First Sight too.
Yeah.
Everyone is clamouring for a piece of it, and certainly, it is a great traffic driver for us, because it is such an amazing program that I feel like every single person in the street is stopping me about, that people want to read more. They want that follow-up content. They want exclusive interviews. They want behind the scenes. And that's something that Honey's been able to do, because we have a spin-off TV show, Talking Married, that comes under our umbrella as well. And I think that's what allows Honey to be a bit different. You know, it's more than simply a play in the online experience. You know, we have on air, we have podcasting, there's a lot to us, and there's going to be a lot more to us as well.
What about the contributions as well from probably well-known Channel 9 personalities to some of those online mastheads? How important is that as well?
I think it's really important, because people know personas like Deb Knight, like Tracy Grimshaw, like Peter Overton, like Sylvia Jeffries on screen, and they want to know more about them. So whether it's writing an opinion piece on what's happened on the court rounds that day, or whether it's Deb Knight revealing something about her family, or whether it's Georgie speaking about a passion project of hers, I think it's a really great way for people to connect with the reporters and with the hosts beyond what they'll see on Breakfast TV or on a 6pm news bulletin.
We've talked a lot to Hugh Marks on the channel over the years since he's been at 9 about the growth of the digital business. It used to be a relatively small contributor financially. With this audience growth, and how much are you involved in the workings of you know, bringing the money in? With this audience growth, will that you know, lead to some dramatic changes in the revenue you can write?
Look, of course we need to make money. That's the business that we're all in, you know, and I need Honey to be not only an editorial success and 9.com.au to be an editorial success, but we want them to be commercial successes. So yeah, we have very ambitious goals, both editorially and financially, of where we'd like all the sites to be.
Is the #1 ranking, and you know, whether it's for a month or however long, is it quite critical in contributing to increasing revenues going forward?
Well, look, I think it's important not only from a staff morale point of view, but from a commercialisation point of view and from a marketing point of view, to be able to say, Honey was essentially, just focusing on that, a startup, if you will. You know, the number of staff was tiny, the audience was growing constantly, and I feel to be able to have gone from pretty much a standing start to where we are now has been a phenomenal effort on behalf of all the staff who've come through.
And when you take that that sort of success that you've experienced with a few of the channels, particularly Honey, to the market, are they just after hits, after you know, the amount of time spent on the page, or is there also the type of content, the quality content that is also being hosted there important? Yeah,
look, I would say it's true of all those points, James, and I think one of the big ones that they do look for is engagement. Yeah. You know, it's one thing to have a certain number of people come to your site. How long are they spending? And I'm very pleased to say Honey has an excellent engagement. I believe we're #1 in engagement. 9.com is probably about number 2 in engagement. Engagement is a hugely important metric for us.
So Married at First Sight, it's got a limited lifespan.
Yes.
It's gone at Easter. What's going to? Where will your big audiences go?
What else? Yeah, come on, the block.
What else is pulling? But it's not all TV properties, is it?
No,
you have your own developed.
Completely. And look, I guess that's where, speaking across all the different verticals that 9 runs, I can tell you that it's our original content that does best online. Whether it's an original breaking news story from one of our news journos, whether it's an original video series that we do, whether it's an original sports piece that we do. People will come for different types of content because they know that they can't get it anywhere else.
Do you have to be a bit more reverential about the 9 content? I mean, you see some pretty racy and outrageous headlines on like News Corp, news.com.au sites, for example. Can you go out there as well, or have you got to be a bit more respectful of the property because it's in-house?
Look, I would like to think that we're respectful of all properties, no matter what we're talking about, and that is one of the big things that I will look at and that I will police, to make sure that we are respectful of everyone and everything, because audiences aren't silly. Clickbait will only get you so far, so I would like to think we show that respect to every topic that we cover.
That's fascinating. And the content you get, is there life beyond just a TV series? I mean, I think 9 now has all the old episodes of Married, so those audiences that are new to it this season will presumably go back and do that do you carry it on in any way with your sort of online content? Or is that...
Look, we may dip back in and out depending where Honey's at, depending where the show is at, but there is a lot more than just the TV integration for Honey. I mean, we've had great success, I think I mentioned before, with Talking Married, the show that we do. It was #1 on the multi-channels last night. It's a great way to integrate content from on-air and online and spin it into something completely different that then helps set an agenda for the next day. But we're already looking beyond maths to what's our next content series, what's our next original series, where are we going, both as an online network and as a network whole.
Reality stars often do well in the media after they shine on a show. Are there any people in maths this year that are potential, you know, contributors to 9 Honey in the future?
Talking about Married at First Sight by the end of the
Never over talking about Married at First Sight. I've got to look, we are working with a few of them at this stage. Last night on the Talking Married show, we had Lizzie back. She left a couple of weeks ago. There is no doubt that the brides and grooms on Married at First Sight are incredibly popular at the moment. We had Charlene back from last year, who came back and hosted a bit this year. So long term, what does it mean for the brides and grooms? I'm not quite sure, but at the moment we are all certainly working well together.
So what's the big focus for this year? I mean, what's the #1 focus when it comes to 9 Honey for 2019?
Look, I'd say the biggest focus for Honey will be to keep growing the network, to keep growing the content that we offer, to move into different spaces, you know, to hit different editorial spots. You know, it's one thing to talk about royals and to talk about maths and to cover the news cycle, but it's another proposition entirely to create content of your own, to create content that can be evergreen, to create content that is going to be water cooler, and it's something that you've created, and that for me is the true measure of success for Honey, when it is organically reaching a lot of people, and when you hear people talking about your content, that's a pretty special moment.
Can that be a key point of difference to the competition? We started off talking about an increasingly crowded marketplace. I imagine that isn't going to let up, if anything, just get more and more competitive. So having that sort of organic content, does that set you apart, do you think, to any degree?
Yeah, I think it really does. I mean, obviously 9 Honey is the only women's network that has a television station attached to it. So there are certain things we can do that our competitors probably can't do. And I would like to think we just have an incredibly hard-working, creative bunch, and being #1 is certainly something we won't take for granted. We will enjoy it and work just as hard in February as we did in January.
You mentioned your competitors then. We've had people on the show before from Women, the News Corp brand, from Mamma Mia, which also does, I think, reasonably well. Are they the other two big ones in the space?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it is an incredibly competitive market, and I think that's why we've been so pleased to see Honey do as well as it has, because at the time you would have thought it was crazy to enter an already really competitive market that had very dominating websites in it, but we've managed to come in, carve our own niche, carve a pretty big piece of the pie for ourselves, and hopefully we can just keep connecting with you viewers and doing more of the same.
Well, Kerri Elstub, we really appreciate your time on the program. We'll have to leave it there, but we're not quite done talking Married at First Sight, because we've got to look at the ratings for week 10, I think, and no surprises to see Married at First Sight at #1.
It's up there again, yeah. Look, and it'll stay there. I think we're pretty sure and saying till the end of its run this year, just doing fantastic business. The news also doing very well. 60 Minutes and Four Corners slipping into the top 5 too. So it was the Cardinal Pell special episode of Four Corners, which did some massive business for the ABC.
And flicking over, taking a look at the top 5 for subscription television, also for week 10.
Yeah, look, again, a real mix of sports. The football codes start this weekend, so we'll start seeing them taking over the chart.
Does that mean when
the major winter
Super Rugby
codes
gets knocked off?
Huh?
I'm doing my bit to get the Super Rugby on the ratings.
Yeah, but it had a fantastic start.
It's because there's no NRL or no AFL.
Exactly, yeah. Well, those numbers will drop a bit, but some people were writing off the sport saying it was in big trouble, but there's still audiences out there who like watching those Australian teams in particular. Yeah, Supercars doing well, Gogglebox doing well, and the AFL sort of warm-up season slipping into the top 5 there.
All right, James Manning, always appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on Mediaweek.
Cheers.